Welcome to the recap show on the Baseball Awakening podcast with Geoff Rottmayer. Today we will discuss the lessons learned and the action items from yesterday's interview.
Hey guys, Geoff Rottmayer here with the Baseball Awakening recap show, where I share with you the biggest takeaways I got from my conversation with Jason Papalio, as well as how I plan to implement what I've learned with my players that train with me in my academy in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And again, as I always say, we want to hear from you because different things mean different things to different people. So it'd be interesting to see how you guys interpreted something that Jason said or something that I'm going to say here today. And I'll make a show reading these emails because we can all learn something from it. So the email is going to be Geoff, Geoff, at baseballawakening.com. So send me your thoughts, your comments, and your feedback. So let me first start off by apologizing for not having the recap show done after the interview. Man, it's been a rough couple of weeks for me with all the signings and everything, but I seem to be recovering. Not 100%, but it's getting better. So, Jason Papalio, a professional recovery specialist. And this is a guy that talks all aspects of recovery. This is the non-sexy stuff that guys do not want to do. But professional athletes have learned to embrace. They don't all love it. There are guys out there that love it, but there's a lot of them that don't love it, but they learn to embrace it because it's going to help them with their performance. So, Jason, in this conversation, we talked a little bit about the mobility, stability, balance, yoga, sleep, nutrition, meditating, breathing, and I'm sure there's a lot of other aspects to the recovery that we didn't talk about. But I think understanding these things that we talked about, you know, the mobility, stability, balance, yoga, sleep, nutrition, meditating, breathing, is a good step in getting an athlete to start understanding the recovery process. Because, again, the recovery process is a huge step for an athlete to improve themselves as an athlete, especially if it's something that they want to do at a higher level. So when I asked Jason to kind of give me the definition of recovery and what it means, because it's a word that's just thrown out there, you know, and very few people really understand what it means. And what he said was essentially, you know, we're trying to give our body time to get our nervous system back into equilibrium, slow things down instead of staying at a high pitch all the time. And, you know, when you stay at a high pitch all the time, you're increasing your chances of injuries. You know, your body needs to recover for it to be optimal in your performance. So while but the thing you have to understand is, while we're operating at a high level, not only is there a short-term effect to that, but there are long-term effects to that. And I think the people are not putting that together. The long-term effects a lot of times start with these short-term effects that we're not paying attention to. So then we went on and we asked him, I said, he said something about being able to watch a guy and be able to tell what they're doing, how they're moving. And I think, you know, learning how to watch a guy and learning what it means, how they move, what it means, is a very valuable skill and ability that coaches should have. And I'll admit, you know, at first it's tough, you know, but if you just start the process of watching and observing how guys move, and if you start watching enough guys, then you can really start to kind of get an idea of some things. And really what it should do is get you to kind of question, why does he do this? Why did everybody seem to be doing this? And, you know, this curiosity will lead to trying to go find answers to some questions, you know, and really, you know, like I said, you'll see some patterns, especially when you get into a specific sport. Like me, all I do is baseball, so I see a lot of the same things with players in how they move. And Jason gave some examples where, if you've seen a guy and he's struggling to rotate or struggling to get extended, or he's struggling the squat down to catch, or he's unable to hinge his hip. You can observe all these things, and this is telling you something. Now, you don't have to be an expert in how to fix it, but it would be good to be able to observe it and be able to bring awareness to it, and then maybe even have someone that you can outsource the solution to, so that we can all get on a common page and on the same page of helping a guy get better. From there, I went on to ask him about, the recovery aspect, and I was talking really in reference to the mobility part, the stretching part. I asked him about the time frame, because the time frame is a question that you get all the time. How long is this going to take? And it's really, you can improve every day, or you can improve not at all. What you put in, what you put out, it's what you get out. It's the same thing when learning how to hit and learning how to pitch. If you choose to work on it once a week, the results won't be there as if you choose to work on it every single day for 5 to 10 minutes a day. So working on your mobility and your recovery is important. And again, it's not sexy. Nobody really enjoys it. Again, most kids don't, professional athletes don't. But when it comes to your performance and you want to play good and you want to play at higher levels, then you've got to focus on the recovery process. And if you really want to reach your potential on the field, then you got to focus on it as well. I mean, that's all there is to it. This part, I feel like it's way overlooked. It's because we're all operating too high. I feel like we don't slow down enough. We don't recover enough. We don't just take the time to be present. And that's going to make a big difference. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. Because what I went in to ask Jason about the breathing, because breathing is something you're hearing a lot more about. He brought up the meditation. Now, I believe that meditating is super important, but I also believe you have to do it the right way. So you throughout the day, you're constantly going to have thoughts, ideas, voices come and go. So you've got to have a technique in learning how to manage it and stay present. And if you're going to succeed on and off the field, in the office setting, in the real world, you're going to have to learn to manage your thoughts, manage the voice, manage the ideas. And breathing and meditating is a big part of that. And so it's really hard to kind of explain, just on a podcast, the proper way to do it. So what I would say, as Jason said, is breathe and count through your breathing. So you're breathing in and out. So he said the 1001, 1002, 1003. That's going to allow you to focus on the breathing part, and then that's going to get your mind focusing on not letting it get distracted. If I'm talking to myself, then I can't think. So that's the process. So I'm doing the breathing process. I'm talking, and now I'm staying in kind of more of a present moment. And this is going to be a very important part. This is something that you do out in the field as well. You can breathe throughout the course of the game to slow things down and stay in the present moment instead of letting your mind wander by your last at bat, letting your mind wander by the last pitch. Just stay present in the present moment and do that through the process of breathing. You can meditate all day long. Meditating doesn't mean you have to close your eyes, sit in a room. You just simply need to be present. So being present is a huge part, and it's a tough thing to get guys to do. But once they get it and once they understand it, then it's kind of a great process to watch, and you'll start to slowly see their performance change because they're operating at a different level. The game slowed down for them. And then this led to, some of the other things that we were talking about. This led to the visualization part. Now, this is another thing that I feel like it's very important but not really taught right. You can learn to see things happen, good and bad, and practice your reaction to it. Practice how you're going to respond to it. Obviously, you want to spend more time on the positive stuff, but I think it's important too to be prepared on in what could happen, and learn how to go ahead and be prepared how you're going to respond to a situation, how you're going to react. That's a very important part. And I think, again, a lot of people don't really understand how to visualize and how important it is. But I tell guys all the time, remember when you were a young kid and how creative you were? You had this huge imagination. Basically, you were visualizing. It was great. You were Superman. You were throwing cars. You were doing all this stuff. You had this great, huge imagination, this great visualization process that you were going through. And then you were doing some self-talk too. So there's a lot of things we can learn from kids on that part. But that's another talk for another time. From there, we started talking about sleep. And I learned something here. This is something that I want to kind of learn a little bit more about. He talked about REM cycles lasting about 90 minutes apiece. And that if you get 4 REM cycles in a night, then you would get about 6 hours. And then he said something about making sure you want to go to bed at the right time and waking up at the same time, and just being consistent so your body understands what it needs to do to recover best. And even when the guy, because I asked him about what about when a guy's traveling, and he said even that, he goes, you want to try and get to bed at the same time. Even in the different time zones, if you're an hour or 2 hours off, you want to try to at least get into the same time. And there was a terminology they used for it. I can't remember what it is. But no, he said the sleep is important. He also said the type of nap one should take, 25 power nap versus a 90-minute nap, which is where you're getting a full REM cycle so that you're not waking up all groggy. So it's interesting stuff. I've got a lot to learn about it, but it kind of gave me kind of a brief understanding of it. And I'm going to re-listen to this show just to make sure everything that I just told you right now is correct. But anyway, there's something I want to learn more about, and something that I'm going to learn more about. The sleeping pattern, the sleep cycle, and how that affects performance. And then we went and we got into the nutrition part. And, on a level, we all know that nutrition matters. But what Jason said that I also agree with, that it's important, is staying hydrated. Staying hydrated throughout the course of the day and throughout the game. I know as I look back, I didn't stay hydrated enough. I didn't stay hydrated enough throughout the day. I didn't stay hydrated enough throughout the games. So it's interesting to realize that could have had an effect on maybe some of my performance. But, and then he said, before the games, you want to make sure you get your carbs. Get your carbs in. And he said an hour or 2 before game. And as you get closer to the game, you want to do less food and more liquid so your body can digest it. And then he talked about post-game, you wanting proteins, and also you want to get your carbs in because you're losing so much energy throughout the game. So this is an area that I'm not very super knowledgeable about. And to be honest, not really one that I really care to learn more about. So the biggest thing that I got from this, and I would tell guys, is, make sure you stay hydrated throughout the day, throughout the game. Get your carbs in before and after game. Get your protein in after the games. And then if you have more questions, Jason's your man. And then I started to ask him to kind of give you guys a better understanding of when things should happen, the time frame of it all. Now, when is the ideal time to work on some of the recovery stuff? And he says first thing in the morning, it's good to get up and do some type of movement-based exercise, something low like yoga. And that's really something that I personally have been trying to add to my morning routine, is about 10 minutes of yoga. And some days I do more depending on how I feel. But something easy to get your day going, to get you gay on a positive end, because especially with the yoga, you're working on your breathing, you're working on your joints, you're working on just staying present. There's just a lot of great benefits to yoga. I'm really liking the yoga in the morning. And then, he said that night you want to do something that's more slower pace, to relax, to wind your day down. So it doesn't really make sense to do your stupid lift right before you go to bed. You're better off doing maybe some yoga again, and maybe some meditating, something to that effect. And then he talked about, I asked him, I said, so what's ideal to do before games and after games, and even practice? And he talked about how before the game, before the practice, you want to focus more on the dynamic movements, which I agree with. And then after the game, after practice, you want to focus more on the static stuff. So there's a lot of people bashing the static stretching, maybe before the game, but even then, before the game, it's not that big of a deal. But just I would focus more on the dynamic stuff before the games, and then the static stuff after the game. And then there was a part of the conversation that we talked about that I would just encourage you guys to go back and listen to, because it's a very important part to understand more, I think, for the long-term effect of your body and your performance, and not only on the field, but just in life in general. So we talk about stress. And so this conversation starts about 43 minutes in. I would highly recommend going back and listening to that part. And, he talked about some good stuff that I think is important to understand. Again, more so, yes, the short term matters, but I think more so for the long term. So all in all, I think Jason did a great job covering a lot of the topics, and it's good to listen to, and it's one that I would take seriously. Like I said, the professional athletes don't always love this part, but they understand how important this part is. And if you want to be a professional athlete one day, then taking advantage of this and getting that competitive advantage on your recovery game, it's going to put you just further ahead than everybody else. So again, thanks a lot for tuning in, guys, and I apologize for not having it done on time. I was feeling horrible, but I'm starting to feel great. So thanks a lot for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.